the phone or the video camera. I forgot what he was talking about. But anyway, but God had set up these principles, and we fool ourselves when we don't follow the principle, because the principle says, give me a little bit of what you have, and I'm gonna bless you with more. Right. Of course, that means you're going to give more off of the more, but you'll always have more than what you need. See, when we don't give what God's requesting, that we don't have what we need. I need you to understand that. We don't have what we need because we don't give God what he deserves. We rob him from God. And I've heard so many excuses, but and these same people, if you really look at their life, it tells you where they put their priority. Your money is a priority. How you spend it, how you don't spend it, what you do with it, it shows your character. And I'm telling you, the best investment, if you like the stock market, the best investment you could ever give is to pay your tithes in full on time, because there's a return on your giving. He promised it. He did it to show you that he's able. Now the question is, are we willing to trust God with a little bit? That's what he wants to know. And that really could be the Bible class on tithe. Malachi 3 it speaks for itself. You give, you got more coming back to you. Now, the New Testament, well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but when I was praying on this, God really broke some stuff down to me. And he told me, he said, the reason why you don't see talk about tithes in the New Testament is because they were already doing it. It wasn't something that needed to be rehashed or rediscussed. This was a given. If you want functionality, you got to pay your tithes. If you want your streets paid, you got to pay your taxes. And this is the funny thing. We complain about paying our tithes. If you knew how the Jews was paying tithes, y'all would go crazy, because there was, at one point, they were counting the leaves on the tree and saying you had to pay a tenth of every leaf on the tree. I mean, they got so critical with it. I mean, they were they were measuring the soil. They had gotten so critical and analytical with the concept of the tenth and the tithe. And man, I'm telling you, there's some stuff that I discovered that I think I would have to have a degree in Jewish studies to understand. Honestly, I'm not even going into it because it's just a lot, like Deuteronomy. Okay, so the book of Deuteronomy and Numbers were written at different times in their sojourn. They weren't written at the same time. One, and I can't remember which book because I didn't write it down, because one book was written while they were wandering for the 40 years, and another book was written when they was stabilized after the 40-year wilderness march. And so that's why there's a conflict. There's a little confliction, because they had different practices at one time, and then they kind of amended them and then put it and wrote it, so they had one and they added to it, and so, and then they got, and even what's not written is that they were doing things in a way that was like compounding. In my understanding, they were compounding the requirement for tithes. They were counting the leaves on the tree and saying, you got to pay attention. I mean, that was just deep. I mean, so And that's when you get into the first fruits, and then the gift offering and everything. But what I really wanted to discuss with everybody is to talk about what God said about tithes. You can't afford not to pay them. We can't. And if you want to be blessed, this is one way of being blessed. And I found out some things as I did this that tripped me out. Okay, so tithes were awarded to now we're getting into why we pay our tithes. Because I hear this all the time. I'm not paying for no preacher's Cadillac. And I know where that's coming from. I know, and I sympathize with that statement. First of all, I'm glad that all the people that I've served under my entire life, my entire saved life, I'm so grateful that the pastors that we've served under did not misuse funds, did not misuse, Now, the pastor is entitled to a portion of the tithes. You're going to see why. But I'm grateful that none of the people that we've served under have behaved in such a way that causes reproach. I'm really glad for that. Now, if you got a big church, if you got 5,000 members, and I don't know what the percentage is, if there's a general percentage or number or whatever, pastors receive a salary or a portion of the offer. I don't know exactly how, we have not been around that. I'm financing the church, basically in a very large way. So I'm not even thinking about, at this point, taking a salary, but a pastor is entitled to it. And if you have a very large congregation, then naturally that what you receive is going to be really nice. Maybe even 6 figures at the end of the year. I'd imagine if you're sitting on 5,000 members, and if they all paying their tithes and they're not, you still would be, you'd be all right. You can afford to have a few nice things. And I'm not against that. I want to say to those who are resistant of paying their tithes because they feel like they're contributing to the welfare of the pastor, you're right, you are. That is the reason why God said, bring it into the storehouse. So clearly we see in Numbers, the 18th chapter, verses 19 through 21, that even the Levites paid a tenth, paid a tithe on what they received. There's nothing wrong for the pastor to receive a portion of the tithes, an offering for his substance, and you'll see why in the teaching. But I want to say this for those that have a resistance to it. It's not your or my responsibility to try to police the pastor and his money management, as far as him receiving a portion of the tithes. If he's not handling it correctly, leave that to God. Just like we expect God to bless us for paying our tithes. Listen, I pay my tithes with the pastor. I'm not saying I don't care. I'm not saying I'm not watching. I'm not saying, that I've totally turned a blind eye. But as far as my ability to affect change, if I see something wrong, I leave that in God's hands. What the pastor does with the money, that's between him and God. Now, there are many churches that have accountability, and I'm just trying to speak in a way that says to the giver, do not worry about what happens with the tithes. That's God's business. God is big enough, the same God you expect, that I expect to bless us with the overflow, is the same God that can police those who have unscrupulous ways about handling God's money. So leave it to God. And I'm not saying that leave it to God and just ignore it. I'm not saying that. I'm saying in a very general way. Do not stop your own blessing by saying, "Oh, I'm not giving because the pastor gonna get a new Cadillac." Listen, if you sitting on, if I knew Bishop Horace Smith when I used to be a member of his church, in Chicago. Now this man, highly accomplished back then. He's even more so now. Highly accomplished doctor. Highly accomplished doctor. If you read his bio right now, it'll just be like, wow. But back then, he was highly sought, highly accomplished, highly trained. He was in demand. He had the biggest Mercedes you could buy. I mean, that sucker looked as long as a Lincoln. I mean, that big black Mercedes, that joker was big. And you know, some people had the nerve in the church to talk, in his congregation, to talk against him buying a new car. And he's like, I don't get it. What's your problem? I work for a living. And I make good money. And I do well. I live good because I work good. God has blessed me. He didn't say these words, but this is the gist of what he said. You know, he's basically saying, I work for a living. I can afford it. I don't understand what the problem is. And the church is growing. So yes, I do pull some, but I didn't buy that car off the church.
Right.
Y'all forget I got a regular job.
Right.
And so, I know some pastors, one I used to sit under, he actually used to give, I don't know if he still does, but he made a mention in Bible class that he gave a portion of his salary back to the church because it was more than what he needed. You know, the church had grown. They had very good financial managers, and so the church grew. And of course, he was privy, because he's the leader, of receiving. But he also had a job, and he had retired from it and had paid everything off. And he had more. They were giving him more than what he needed, so he gave it back to the church. And I know, for example, every time that we have had services outside of the house, there have been times I completely forgot about the offering, and people gave. I mean, just amazed me. It shocked me, to be honest with you. So I'm trying to get you to understand. Don't worry about what the preacher does or doesn't do with the money. Just make sure your heart is right. If you make sure your heart is right, that's what the New Testament is talking about. The New Testament, see, I don't think I got enough storage to get deep. Not this week. I can't get deep this week on this. But when people talk about, well, the New Testament doesn't say to give, it's already established. This is an expectation that God has of the people that never changed. Jesus died on the cross, then come up out of the tomb 3 days and said, all power is given to me on heaven and earth. And y'all ain't got to pay tithes no more. I mean, that's exactly how people are spending it. Like, oh, you ain't got to pay tithes no more. I done died on the cross. Tithes is over with. You ain't got to pay tithes no more. I'm sending money from heaven. I mean, It ain't, the tithes is not for God as much as it is for us.
Yeah.
The blessing comes to us.
It's just like paying. I think a lot of times we see things in the worldly realm, and we forget that he set up a standard, like you saying, a requirement in that realm too. Your taxes and everything.
Exactly.
It's a benefit.
Exactly.
Because it's keeping up storage for you and others, and we don't even realize when we pay, it's for everyone.
It's for everybody. It's for everybody.
And that's what tithes is.
That's what tithes are for. It's to help those in times of need. Meat in my storehouse. It's to help those in times of need. It is to be a bulwark, and see, when we understand.
Yeah, you don't even worry about it, because if you gotta think about it, then you worrying about it.
Yeah, see, well, then that shows your faith, because where there's no faith, there's fear. Yeah. And so when you look at your $100 and you say, well, this $100 I can do this with, or this with, or that with, and you say, oh, I give God 20. Then you telling God, I don't trust you with my life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I want you to bless me, but I don't want to put nothing up for
it. And a lot of times we understand everybody don't have the money, but you can pay tithes and others. See, they always look to the monetary, but your time is time. I mean, you got to.
Well, that's actually more. I mean, if you're not working, of course, yeah, your time.
But I'm just saying, it's other ways until you are able to give monetary.
Right, that's true.
But
because even God has set up a system.
Yes.
That even in the Old Testament, He set up a system that if you couldn't give a lamb, that you give a turtle dove. You couldn't give a turtle dove, you give a ephah of meal, or and then there was a wave offering. It was all kind of.
It's a sacrifice.
There was all, no matter what economic status you were, if you didn't have a lamb, whatever you had, God wanted a tenth of it, and He wanted the best part.
That's why
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you have. You always have enough to bless the house.
It's a sacrifice, and a lot of times we don't really understand the sacrifice, because it shows our character.
It does.
And if you're not willing to give in that realm, it shows your heart.
Yes, it does.
And it's a heart condition. And that's why He came to us on that level, to show us our human self, our fleshly self, because He wanted us to see the spirit of what He represents, so we wouldn't be so carnal. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because sometimes we forget the little things go a long way. If you be, like you say, it could go a long way. You don't even realize how far that could go when your heart is in the right condition.
That's right. It's like I said, it is not that God need anything that we have, as much as it is that it is a showing the condition of our heart. Yes. And the level of our faith. And that's what God, that's what it's really resting at. And when we understand that really this is where we're drawing the line with God, God is saying, okay, you don't trust me, I can't bless you. There's a principle that works here.
Yeah.
You're not being blessed because you're not trusting God. You're not trusting God. You're not trusting God. If you're not blessed, you're not trusting God. Somewhere.
Yeah.
You understand? And this is one area that a lot of people have problems with. They don't want to give their money because XYZ. Like I heard Pastor say, you can't afford not to pay your tithes. You can't afford not to.
I mean,
God gets his off the top.
Yeah.
And if God don't get his off the top, then it's leftovers. So It's like Cain and Abel. You know, you can't complain when God put the principles out there. This is what I expect. And if you do right, you'll receive goodness. But I will pour out and I will rebuke the devourer. It's the trouble you avoid, the accident you avoid, the sickness you avoid. And I told you about the job. I was talking about the job. The job that I was going to take in South Dakota for $120,000 a year. 8 months later, they went out of business.
Yeah.
It's the stuff you avoid. It's the calamities you avoid. Not only the blessings you receive, let me say it another way. It's not only the money that you receive in, but it's the money you don't got to pay out. I told you about the blessing that I had with the air conditioner. They're going to hit us for $2,500. We got to replace the whole system. I'm sitting here like, Lord, come on now. The hottest day of the year, it goes out. Come on, Lord. The Lord told me, he said, go out there and wash it down. Wash it down. And I washed it down. And he said, now go throw the switch, Cameron. I threw the switch. This sucker been blowing cold air, 67 degrees in the house for like an ice box. I ain't had to pay now 1 penny. Not one. So when he talks about rebuking the devourer for your sake, that's the kind of, it's not the money you take in, it's the money you don't gotta pay out.
Well, see, that's why your spiritual mind as well as your spiritual heart has to be in alignment with the Lord. Because it's the things, like you say, that you cannot see that he shows you down the road.
Yeah. You don't see everything you avoid. Yeah. What in glory we will, but we don't see it today.
Yeah.
Sometimes he lets us see, what we avoided, but generally we don't see it all the time.
It's a faith thing, like you said. We
don't see it. We don't see it all the time.
It's where your faith lies.
So he said, I'm gonna rebuke the devourer. Yeah. I'm gonna pour out a blessing. I just want you to trust me.
That's it.
And give me what's owed to me. That's really what he's saying. And so when we do those things, we're telling God, I trust you.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna stop there because I don't know how much we got on the other side of the other tape, but we're probably gonna stop there. And we're going to pick back up and we're going to talk about the Levitical and the priest order next week. We're going to talk about, and so you understand, there is a reason why God said, bring the tithes in the storehouse. So there's meat in my house. So we're going to go through that next week, and I'm going to show you some stuff that I found out I didn't know, I didn't understand completely. So it was really exciting for me to share it with you. So tune in next week. We'll be posting another video on tithes, and it's a touchy subject, but I'm telling you, you can't be blessed. Not to the fullness. Not to the fullness. Not to the fullness. Because if your heart is not properly conditioned to trust God, God can't trust you. Can't pour out a blessing and you forget about it. He's not going to do that. He pour you out a blessing. No, your heart has to be conditioned. It has to be conditioned to receive. It can't be hard. It has to be conditioned to receive the blessing. Because you think about pour out a blessing, you don't have room to say, we're thinking about buckets of money. Listen, if you are not disciplined in paying your tithes, them buckets of money will drive you away from God.
Yes.
So you have to be conditioned. We have to be conditioned. He's not going to bless us if we're not properly conditioned because we have so little faith and we're so materialistic, and we mean and we nasty. God's not going to bless us. So understand what this is. This is to help you get the blessing. That means you got to condition your heart.
Yes.
That means you got to work on your heart. That's what that means. Why can't I trust God with a tenth Why can't I trust God with a tenth?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I can't keep the other 9? He want 10. He want one of my 10 fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Give God what he wants. And we'll talk about next week specifically why he set it up this way.
Amen.
You paying your tithes, your taxes. You pay everybody else. Everybody else get paid. And come to God. The one person that we should be excited about, that's what the New Testament is talking about. It's trying to deal with the condition of our heart when we give. Because the way they were given out of piety and out of pride. You know, they were given out of, look at me, I put all this money in, and here come this little woman, she put in 2 pennies. You know, they were given out of, pride. Jesus was trying to teach them about the condition of the heart. Yeah. He didn't say stop paying the tithes. He didn't say stop giving offering.
Mm-hmm. He just wanted you to look at your heart.
He wants you to check the condition of your heart.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you get to receive it. Your heart condition. I'm glad to bless the house. I'm glad. And just like that woman gave 2 mites, she didn't have much else left. It's like Dee Dee said, like Sister Mabel said, it's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's a sacrifice. And it shows the level of our faith. Man, I'm telling you, we ain't never had nothing cut off. I can't remember. We ain't been homeless, not physically. We've been technically homeless, but not physically homeless. We've never been hungry. We've never been without. We've not had everything we wanted, and we've not had everything we needed right then and there. But we've never been backward. We've never been upside down and nothing. God has been really, really good to us over here. And I attribute it to my mother teaching me to pay my tithes. I'm so proud of my daughters. My oldest girl, when she was here, she paid her tithes. She put her money in the envelope. Said, here, Daddy, here the tithes. And my youngest daughter, she's been working for a few weeks now. I think she's on a 4th week or thereabout. Religiously, she takes her money out. She puts it in a tithe envelope. So here's my tithes, Daddy. And I'm trying to teach them now. You're going to be blessed. You're going to be blessed if you bless God first off the top. So that's all we're going to do tonight. I don't want to bore your patience too long. You're always welcome to come by and fellowship with us on Friday nights at 7:30. We have Bible class. And Sunday, we have an extended Sunday school because there's only a few of us here. So we have sort of like, I call it a Super Sunday. And we're waiting for COVID-19 to blow over so that we can get back to having our in-person services. But we're thankful for what we have thus far.
Amen.
Amen. And so you're welcome to come. You're welcome to fellowship with us. And leave your questions. Leave your questions and your comments. And I'll respond to them.
Amen.
I have a website, No Soul Left Behind. Actually, well, that's what it means. It is www.nsl No Soul Left Behind, NSLB WPA, Winfield Pentecostal Assembly .com. Of course, this video will be on YouTube, and Winfield Pentecostal Assemblies also, I have a Facebook page. So feel free to leave your questions and your comments. um, on any of those forums, and we'll see you again this time next week. Lord say the same. God bless.
Amen.
Amen.